Hey, so before we get in the review, I gotta tell you something first. As I was finishing up the review that you're about to see, OA got back to my RMA request, and they said instead of sending the pistol back, they asked if I would come to the factory and have the pistol looked at in person. Obviously, I said yes, that's a cool experience. I don't believe they reached out to me as someone who had a YouTube channel. I think they don't know that I have this. Maybe they'll find it after this video goes live, but whatever. I went as a guy who wanted his gun fixed, not as a YouTuber or anything. I didn't take pictures, I didn't take videos, I did not even ask. I will come back after the review and talk about this a little further, but I don't think that my guns, both the ones I had, which are from Nevada, and they're in NC right now, I don't think they're representative of the guns coming out of North Carolina at the moment. The shooting experience and, all the external stuff absolutely is 100% valid, but they've made some changes, and I'll talk about that at the end. So anyway, here's the original unadulterated review before I went out to OA. Alright, this sucks to say, but here we are. To get this out of the way up front and give you a preview of how this review's about to go, I have now had two different 2311 handguns that not only have had severe malfunction issues, but both have had several instances of firing 2 rounds with a single trigger press. I am currently in the RMA process for the second pistol, but I also just hit about 3,000 rounds between both guns, almost. They've been making it hard. Despite the experience so far being like living in Spain without the S, where I could just go and say the guns don't work, this is about to be a full review of the OA Defense 2311 5-inch, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'd like to point out that I'm a small channel and I've never had a sponsor or product sent to me. I document my shooting stuff as I was pretty much already doing it, so keep that in mind. I bought this gun for myself as my new main pistol with my own money. I intended for it to be my go-to for almost everything handgun related except concealed carry in the hotter half of the year. I try to make informed buys and have everything I own and that you guys see be good shit. The fact that it isn't panning out this time really sucks. Race guns shoot great but can get finicky. Duty guns run for days but don't shoot so smooth. What if there was a happy middle ground for a gun with the reliability and shootability to meet in the middle? To get started on a little background, the 2011 or double stack 9mm 1911 has been around for a long time but didn't really hit the market at large until SDI and then Staccato released the P. They took a finicky platform that had been reserved primarily for competitive shooting gamers and made it reliable enough to kind of deserve being called a duty gun. There were a few huge issues with it though. On top of fuck-off expensive magazines, the mag pattern you get the luxury of paying for is still the weak point of the gun. Any particulate other than pristine 9mm ammo in there can and will choke the mag and bring the gun relying on it to a standstill. Field stripping is also a little more complicated. The grip safety holdover from the 1911 remained, as well as the delicate ejector setup and the internal extractor that often required tuning. And who could forget that despite the grip safety, Series 70 based 19 and 2011s are not drop safe. Oh, the things we put up for to have a good shooting pistol. And I didn't even mention the price. So a few years ago, because these flaws were evident, the market was screaming at the top of its lungs for more 2011s, a few companies set out to improve upon Staccato's groundwork. So imagine a 2011 that is simplified compared to the original design, is ambidextrous and drop safe, takes easier to find and more reliable and cheaper mags, and emits the grip safety. Yes, exactly, the OA 2311. What did you think I meant? OA, formerly Oracle Arms, beat Staccato's HD to the market by a few years with their 2311, and the Platypus, its only true competitor on the alt-mag 2011 space for a while, was marketing itself as a fully custom gun instead of a duty one, attacking a different niche than the 2311. So what is the 2311? Basically, they've taken the 19 or 2011 platform and simplified some parts that get in the way of reliability while theoretically retaining the feel that makes a 2011 so smooth to shoot, with some modern upgrades to the controls too. Externally, the gun has ambient controls and a reversible mag catch, including the slide release lever. Molded plastic gas pedals are present, the barrel locking lugs are simplified, as is the way the barrel cams, eliminating the link system that John Moses Browning himself thought was a fault of the original 1911, but persists in most 2011s to this day. A good crisp Series 70 trigger is still the highlight of the platform, but with a lighter firing pin and heavier spring holding it back, the gun is drop safe without the need for a firing pin block that would affect trigger pull like a Series 80 gun. Theoretically, guns set up like this can go off if still drop nose down from like 30 feet or higher, but it seems a little implausible to happen, doesn't it? I don't personally juggle my guns or throw them up in the air. Standard 19 and 2011s come in either a bull or a bushing barrel variety. Takedown on both is a little more complicated than a modern gun. The 2311 has neither. It's a design with a thinner profile barrel like a bushing one, but it does go into the slide like any modern striker-fired pistol. To go along with this, the gun has an aluminum frame that's lighter than steel and better for carrying all day or running around with it in the holster. Without a steel frame and bull barrel, there's more reciprocating mass compared to the overall weight of the gun, so as far as physics go, a standard steel 2011 will have less muzzle flip at the cost of weight in theory. Looking at the 2311 as a duty-style gun, the lighter weight is a good move, and to make it compete with its heavier competitors, the 5-inch 2311s have a long stroke recoil system, which means the slide moves back further than on a typical pistol. These mods have been around as an option for a long time on various platforms, and the idea is it smooths out recoil impulse by giving the spring more time to work. Think the AR's rifle length buffer system versus a carbine length. There's some debate if these mods actually make pistols more shootable overall, but in the 2311's case, it feels to flip a little less than a similarly weighted 4¼ inch Bull armory pistol, which is of a more traditional 2011 variety. So in this case, I like the stroke length. Insert stroke joke here. That reversible mag catch I mentioned is a P320 catch to match the P320 mags that this takes, so the aftermarket for both those is widely available. I have zero faith in the P320 itself, but the mags on that platform are actually one of the better parts of it, so no complaints here. The external extractor is also a SIG part, so replacements are common. There's a neat party trick built into the 2311 where the plastic grip module is short and has a magwell cap piece that can be swapped to make the grip either more compact or full size. If you're after a 5-inch gun, this option won't mean much to you, but on the 4¼ inch commander size ones, this conversion is like the size change on a Glock 19 versus a 19X, but without having to swap serialized parts. 2 screws is all it takes. The size of this integrated magwell in the full-size version isn't a giant gamer funnel, but it's really nice for something that's still concealable under standard fall clothes. The large cutouts in the side of the magwell to aid in stripping out a stuck mag don't interfere with the function, even if I don't think they're strictly necessary as a feature. When you pick up the gun, you'll notice right off the bat that the dimensions are different from a standard 2011. At first feel, it's contoured nicely to the hands compared to the stock 2011 grip that are more straight and wider. This hump on the back feels good and forces your hand into a good high grip against the beaver tail when you lock down on the grip. Due to not having to accommodate the brick shithouse wide 2011 mags, the 2311 grip is longer front to back and narrower on the sides. There's no undercut in the trigger guard, so I did develop some Glock knuckle adjacent symptoms, not too bad though. All that sounds mostly nice, but it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. If it's sunshine and you sweat, or it's rainbows and it rains, you will notice the lack of texture on the grip right away and it becomes a bit of a live fire slip and slide. There is no front checkering. It's got these bands that stop up and down movement, but do nothing for side-to-side forces. From the sides, you can see a few large bald spots, and from the back view, 60 to 70% of the grip area are totally bald. I'm worrying about my hairline vicariously through shooting this pistol. On my first 2311, you'll notice I did a silicone carbide job to try to fix this. Too much texture can make it where a bad grip on a pistol from draw is difficult to readjust, but this is way too far in the other direction. I get the sides being slicker for concealed carry purposes, but the backstrap having just over a thumbnail's worth of texture is an interesting design choice to say the least. There's also a small ledge in the back of the polymer frame under the safety that really hammered into the meat of my palm. I sanded it flat in the first gun I had. I never got that far with the second gun due to huge issues right away. Talon and Handle It both make grip tapes for this gun. You could also always get a stipple job, and I did a silicone carbine job to my first pistol. I don't think the grip texture is a deal breaker. It's unfortunate you have to spend additional over the cost of the gun, but you do get to make it into what you prefer. Moving up, the controls are excellent as far as 2011s go. Safeties are very positive and easy to use without being too easy, and that's on both sides with both hands. The first of the two I had came with larger safeties, and when I say large, I mean the wings of a small airplane. The smaller safeties on the replacement gun are well suited to conceal carry, but still very usable due to the good tensioning. You won't be using the small ones as rear gas pedals, but that's not really good shooting technique anyway. I bumped the right side large safety into the on position a few times with my knuckle when breaking my grip to drop a mag, but that issue was corrected after one day of dry fire. Slide catches on both sides are standard 1911 size, so you generally do have to be hitting them with your support hand off slide lock reload if the gun locks back in the first place. The OA mags I had with base pads began to refuse to lock back in most cases very fast. The stock mags without the base pads and the Magpul AMAG 21 rounders did lock back fine, so I would blame the extensions, except the slide lock fit is very notchy. I'm not surprised some of the mags didn't overcome that notch. The trigger was mostly flat with a short chew, and the pull is lighter than the advertised 4 to 4.5 pounds on my second gun here I have in my hand. There's a little more take-up than some racier guns, but a crisp break and a near non-existent overdrive will still make for an objectively good trigger with a tactile reset. The shoe length is not my personal favorite, but it would seem the shoe is compatible with other 2011 sized ones if you wanted to make that change. Moving forward, there are gas pedals molded into the frame on both sides. I like them as an index point, but I'm less active with my thumbs while shooting, so I don't actually use them as gas pedals while I fire. For those of you with smaller hands, these may not even be usable in firing due to how far forward they are and the fact that the shape has the back corner kind of cut off. Personally, I could live without them, but the big issue with these gas pedals is they're the chief contributor to the 2311 not fitting in holsters that I might otherwise be able to sneak into, because otherwise the front dimensions on this pistol are not far off from a standard 19 or 2011. Up to the slide, fitment of the frame is maybe just a little bit looser than a staccato. It's a production gun, not a hand-fit one. Pretty good, not stellar, but to get more you really have to ratchet up the price tag, and that fit becomes a luxury thing rather than having a real tangible feel on shooting after a point. The finish is good and slick, but doesn't inhibit using the front serrations. They don't seem too sharp, but I haven't had any issues with them at all. They're also about 2 inches long, so you've got a nice wide area to grab onto that will bite you back. Optics mounting off the slide is done with a proprietary plate system. The RMR plate the gun came with did not co-witness, and on an RMA trip, OA replaced my front sight to be taller without me asking, so I still don't have rear co-witness, but the front iron is now visible in the window, and doesn't line up with the rear irons if I were to swap back to the no optic filler plate. The gun does come with RMSC and a DPP plate too, and the Delta Point plate is the only one that will line up with this new post they've put on there. Most optics plates are sights ahead of the dot unless you go for the SRO plate, which is out of stock at the point of making this video. The machining work is good and tight on these, and I quite like the plate system despite the fact it's proprietary. Nothing has come loose, and more so, it inspires confidence that nothing will down the road. So how does it actually feel to deliver 9 to target? Surface level, it's smooth, but maybe a little flippier compared to a steel frame gun. The trigger being as good as it is helps a lot with quick and accurate shots, and that's the main reason that 2011 style guns are popular. I would say it feels like it flips a little more than a standard 2011, but returns quicker, but others have told me that it's less flippy after shooting it side by side with a 5-inch bull tack. I don't know about that one, man. That specific guy is 6'5" and is made of muscle, so maybe the texture I added to the gun let him torque on it harder than his bull, since the plastic on that's slicker. I preferred it over the bull side by side in comparison, but round counts were limited that day, and I did have more time on the 2311 from the get-go. In my personal experience, these guns like 124 grain much better than the 115 stuff. The 115 runs the slide a little faster, and I find it makes the dot return a little lower and bounce around when it comes back down. To circle back to the long slide stroke thing we talked about earlier, I do think it makes a difference here. To say this thin-barreled and aluminum frame gun shoots almost as good, if not as good as the Bull Armory that weighs 6 more ounces, and has the steel frame and bull barrel, that's fairly impressive. Fair warning, it took me some time to get used to the recoil stroke. The timing of the recoil and the grip pressures required were a little different than what I was used to, so at first it was really easy to shank shots or string them vertically. I've got a buddy who had a similar experience swapping to and from the long stroke system in his steel frame PDP. Overall, it shoots surprisingly comparably to similar but heavier traditional guns of the same size, being only 29 ounces. If you bump up to a 2011 though, in like the 40 ounce range, you're going to see a huge difference in dot smoothness, but that's to be expected when you add that much weight. Overall, for the weight, this shoots pretty good if your control is dialed in and the ammo is on your side. On that note, the 2311 benefited really well from some 130 grain gamer ammo that was loaded to make 2011 shoot as smooth as possible. But like I said, 115s just didn't feel like it. And generally, yeah, of course, that stuff is a little less pleasant to shoot, but I've never had it like this before where it really makes the gun just behave not great. So now we get into the muck. We went into shooting, let's talk about when it wouldn't. First, I had a 2311 compact nearly 2 years ago. It had severe hammer follow issues when I got it once every other mag. I RMA'd it and it came back perfectly functional. I sold it a long time ago due to no faults of its own and I've been missing one since. Everything else described in this section from here on out is about the 5-inch I got in December. I bought this gun very lightly used from a shop that is a dealer for OA, not directly from the original owner. I'd guess it had well under 500 rounds at the time of purchase. I made 0 modifications at first other than adding a 507 comp hollow sun. The gun ran perfectly except for a pesky issue where once every 1 to 200 rounds, the hammer would fail to cock properly, slip off the sear, and be caught by the half-cock hooks. I had several occurrences of this. Easy enough, I filled out some RMA paperwork, and within 2 weeks I had the pistol back in my hands after a trip to OA, except there were 0 changes after it was received. Pulling it apart and looking at the sear, it was clear where the hammer hooks were rolling the sear from the half-cock catches, so I had a local smith and buddy fit a good billet steel sear into it out of warranty. It shot great, and I gave it back to him to make some fine-tuning adjustments and make the pull and reset a little more to my liking. He did it and commented that the leaf spring that runs the sear seemed a little worn due to the multiple adjustments from OA and himself. The next training day, the gun started fine and then went downhill fast. 150 rounds flawless, and then 1 half-cock, then multiple more becoming more frequent as I added another 150 rounds to the count. It was clear the sear spring was toast and it couldn't hold tension. Since the internals are Series 70, but the sear spring is proprietary, I reached out to OA explaining the situation and asked to be sent or if I could even buy a new sear spring as the gun was touched by non-warranty gunsmith. Regardless of the warranty, OA gracefully said send the gun in and we'll replace the whole ignition system. Hell yeah, even better. After a week or two, I got the gun back again, in my hands with the fresh internals. Day 1 of training on the new internals, and the exact same thing happened, but even worse. I got through the first half of the day without any issues, and then had the gun do a double. 1 trigger pull, but 2 bullets come out. Instead of catching half-cock, the hammer went all the way home. Half-cock is one thing, double is a little more concerning. And just like before, the gun went downhill fast from there. A few hundred rounds to the first malfunction, and then after that they started to become more common faster. I had 3 more doubles and a half-cock within 100 rounds. Again, OA was gracious and stated they'd outright replace the gun. No issue for me, the doubles really gave me the heebie-jeebies on that first one. Gun 1 goes back, a week later, gun 2 arrives. I add my red dot to it, did no other changes, I didn't even field strip it. It's the same model and is within 50 counts of the same serial number as the old one. On its first range trip, I fired 50 rounds to 0 and feel it out during a larger training session with the Romulus, and it had a half-cock. Oh boy. Who wants to take wagers on what's about to happen next? I got the next session recorded in its entirety. Everything started pretty well, and then all of a sudden went downhill really fast. We got a double, and then after that we started to have more doubles and more half-cocks, a total of 2 doubles and 2 half-cocks throughout the day. Additionally, and it was ammo related, we had 7 different failures to extract, including some stovepipes. That was with factory 115 grain brass case stuff, and we did fix it by switching ammos, but it's concerning because other guns, 2 different ones, ran that ammo fine. So that's where our story leaves us right now. I'm pending another response from OA while scripting this. To keep in mind, I'm wearing the opposite of rose-colored glasses while trying to pose this hypothetical. Imagining the gun ran perfectly, does this achieve the best of both worlds between duty and performance? You have to understand that all gun makers will market on the claim that their gun shoots better. When you upgrade into the 2011 game, and even when you start adding stuff like ports and comps, increases in realized performance overall are still relatively small in most cases, compared to the increases in skill. Skill's going to be the big thing holding you back. The one caveat being really good triggers like this almost seem to be the only true exception, but maybe the short and light pull just covers up bad fundamentals. With that being said, this gun shoots nicer than your average duty gun. Shit, it better. It's not magic, and nothing is. But with that being said, it still shoots good. Like I said, my friend with the steel frame PDP was able to make the long stroke on that work, and it took a little while, but I also got there with the 2311, and it was feeling like it returned well after a good amount of effort in working on the timing of the recoil and the pressures. Compared to my Glock 47, it doesn't have the same amazing Glock snap back to point of aim, but it's much better to shoot and doesn't punish me as hard as the Glock if I don't do my part. I need to be dialed in as hell to get the Glock to come back perfectly. Not that I can slack with this gun, but the lows aren't so low, if you know what I mean. It also shoots about on par with heavier guns that I think would be a little annoying to carry around all day or sprint with holstered once you run ammo that isn't 115 grain. Big fat pigs shoot flat for sure, but the weight here is a happy medium. As long as you don't expect it to be as smooth as a cruise ship like an MPA due to the mass. Even though the prices on STI pattern mags have come down, the P320 magazine is still a big draw for this platform. You don't have to sell a kidney to get a full complement of good magazines, and this pattern is more grime resistant than the standard 2011 stuff. Did you know you have to tune dimensions on STI mags after hard use? Like the feed lips can just fall out of spec, and that's pretty well accepted that it happens? Yikes. And P320 mags are also available in most places off the shelf rather than having to buy them from online. The MSRP for the base model 5-inch isn't much lower than its namesake, but street is around 2,000 bones. It's competitive in the 2011 world, but still high because that's the 2011 world and it's honestly crazy. That's a lot of money compared to the wider market. As with most 2011s, you might slightly outshoot how you would perform with a quality striker gun if you're good. If you're not good or you're having a bad day, you might see extra gains by going to something like this, while also saving some weight from a standard 2011 and gaining some quality of life improvements too. But I haven't forgotten that hypothetical, and I'm sure you haven't either. Normally you say I've only had a sample size of 1, but in this case mine's a little higher than that. 2 separate 5-inch pistols and 3 totally separate OA factory ignition kits plus 1 aftermarket sear couldn't run reliably. Not to mention the compact from years ago had the same issues out of the box. The uncommanded doubles turns me off more than anything else. OA customer service has been excellent to me, especially since the sear work from my gunsmith absolutely voids the warranty. Unfortunately, the guns at this point have not run acceptably. We will see what happens after the next RMA cycle. OA has not given up on me, and I'm not going to give up on them. And I really do want to stress that because there's a lot of companies in this industry that really suck major when it comes to having issues like this, and there are some companies that knock it out of the park, and this one knocks it out of the park. Hopefully in the future I'll have a running pistol and I can take that biggest demerit off this review, but for now, as always, thank you for watching. I've been Cody, get out there, go train, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, so there you have it. You've seen some of the thoughts I have on that pistol, ups, downs, and all kinds of issues that I was having. I want to stress again that before I even went out there, they were really nice to me. Just in how they handled the RMA process. I said this in the end of the review, but like some companies in this space really suck, and OA seems to, before I even went out there, OA seemed to really care for their product. The way that they handled the fact that I had that gun out of warranty, like explicitly what the warranty says, I voided it. And they still said, send it in, we'll replace the parts. That was really cool of them. I don't believe they clocked me as an influencer, and honestly, if someone with a channel as small as me could be called an influencer, that'd be a really broad definition of the word. I went out there as a guy who just wanted to get his gun fixed, and from talking to them, they didn't make mention of the channel or, anything, and I didn't tell them either. If I recall, 10-8 Performance, a channel with like 10 times more subscribers than me, had some pretty significant issues with these guns, and I don't believe he had the same treatment. Unfortunately, his channel's been nuked at this point, but, the point still stands that, like, people bigger than me, I don't believe got this same treatment that I did. I think I got this as just a customer who was having a hard time, not as a, YouTuber. But I do want to go back to that part where I said that my 2311s and my issues with them, I don't believe they reflect what's going on, coming out of the factory currently. I didn't really touch on this in the review, but I did have a little note in there that the ignition parts, like the internals, are MIM, and they haven't really said anywhere that that's changed, but from seeing it firsthand, all of the internals on those guns, except like the safety levers on the outside, all the MIM stuff is gone. MIM stuff isn't necessarily bad, but at any price point, it's just better not to see it, quite honestly. And it's good that it's gone in this case. I don't believe that my issues were necessarily caused by MIM because of some things that, happened when we tried to fix my guns at the factory. They didn't quite take the new non-MIM parts. It seems like maybe something with that frame is a little out of spec, but that's just conjecture on my part. The gun had to stay with them because we couldn't quite get it fixed there, despite putting some of the new production stuff in there that runs with all the guns off the line currently. I'm not going to talk about too many specifics of that trip because, again, I didn't go there as an influencer, but I do just want to say that, from what I saw with everyone that I met out there, and I met some people, from the ground floor up to the top, I think that everyone out there is very, they care about the product a lot. It wasn't just dudes who were there for a paycheck. There was knowledge, there was, knowledge transfer to me, and there was just a passion for getting these things to go out the door and making a good product. And that wasn't just like the dudes in the cage putting the guns, but that was everyone from customer service to dudes in the tool shop to, fellows way high up on the company. Everyone seemed to really care about the product and about the customer experience. I mean, hence the fact I was even in there. This can be said for a lot of firearm manufacturers, good and bad, but OA Defense only has one product, and it's the 2311 pistol and its variants. So they're obviously invested in the success of that gun. Other companies have something similar to that, but, still don't have that same, like, we want our stuff to succeed type vibe to them. OA was clearly, everyone there was interested in not only like the product, but my experience of it and doing it right. Things have changed over time to make it a better product, but the price hasn't really changed, and it's just overall from, the gun that I had 2.5 years ago, the compact one, to the two that I had now, even to now, things are changing to make the product better. There's been small tweaks, there's been larger changes to the internals, all that stuff, as well as moving out to North Carolina in general. Everything is to make the product better, and I don't believe that's just like marketing shit they threw at me. I think that after meeting them, that's actually, the value of the company is to make a good product for the people and then fix stuff that isn't going right, and then also, from what I've seen, work out the issues as to why things didn't go right for me, even though it was an older gun. This part was a little less than scripted, so I'm sorry if I'm rambling here. I do just want to try to get the point across that I think that OA stands behind their product and has a lot of vested interest, obviously, along with me, the shooter, in it. The guns have not performed very well for me so far, but at the same time, the company is more than taking care of me with it, so I think that matters a lot. They haven't given up on me, so I'm not going to give up on them. I like the pistol enough to where I'd like it to work, so, until something just catastrophic happens or, we fix the pistol, I'm going to keep trying. So I'd like this to not be the end of the 2311 that you've seen on this channel. Obviously, this review was not that great, but with that being said, I have hope for the future, and I think that a good team stands behind this firearm. So I hope in the future I will have a gun that I can say, I like this thing. This is great. Anyway, thanks for watching. I dragged this one out. Take it easy.